did want to start off this week with Monday. So Monday.com has this whole AI driven surge in the price. So AI is
Mhm.
proven to be more than just hype, and Monday's blowout earnings prove it. With a 26% jump in share price, surprising revenue beats, and AI powered automation driving adoption, is this just the beginning of a new wave of tech winners? This is one of those stocks that you set me down on.
Yeah, so this one came up in another screener that I run every day at the end of the day, and this is one of the big volume movers that came up at the top of my list. Monday in general was an interesting company just from an earnings growth perspective. Traditionally I wouldn't really consider much about the SaaS plays like this. It's a fairly small company, not a huge one on the list. I think overall market cap's about 15.8 billion. So it's big, but it's not huge, obviously, the mega cap companies. That said, that news, I think, spells out the signs of this story that I've been trying to keep track of for a while now, which is around the AI aggregators, if you will, which is really kind of, I think, the next wave that we're going to be able to anticipate in the market. And it really comes down to which software players out there are utilizing AI to their advantage to dramatically increase the value proposition given to customers. And Monday, I think, is a great example here of how their integration of AI is improving the experience for their customers and adding a whole lot more value, allowing them to increase revenue. And of course, we're very quickly seeing signs of this elsewhere in the market in the early stage startup environment. Companies like Cursor AI, which I know you use, I use it almost every day now. It's my IDE of choice because it integrates those AI models from OpenAI and Claude, and any other AI model that you're familiar with using is kind of integrated there. You've got some options to choose from on which model is used, but they just copied VS Code, integrated with OpenAI, cobbled together some proprietary technology, and the next thing you know, Cursor AI is worth $2.5 billion from the next raise of capital that they've acquired, and it's one of the fastest growing SaaS companies like in history now. So it's important to recognize that I think right now the integration of AI technology is going to start showing up in a lot of different companies, and it's going to be important to keep an eye on what that looks like. Like we're past the initial stage of like the AI buzzwords. The next step is, okay, who's actually integrating this? How are they integrating it? And how are they driving real value? So maybe we can run through the headlines of how Monday accomplished this.
Yeah, that's right. So let's take a look here. So I thought it was very interesting. There's this nice summary article that love to take a look at. So basically, the headlines we've been seeing is like basically Monday was already implementing an AI strategy that wasn't working, or wasn't working to the degree that they thought it should. And then,
Mhm.
to your point with that whole AI buzzword, that just tack on some AI over here, say that it's AI, and some
Right.
people like it. Then they had to pivot, and the way that they pivoted is almost like one of the great use cases, one of the great examples of how to actually do this properly. But just taking a look at the summary from this article, this is from VentureBeat, says with the advent of and popularity of generative AI in the last 3 years, particularly since the debut of ChatGPT, Monday, much like every other enterprise on the planet, began to consider and integrate the technology. This is the bolted on AI that we saw last year.
Right.
The initial deployment of Gen AI and Monday didn't quite generate the return on investment users wanted. However, the realization led to a bit of a rethink and pivot as the company looked to give its users AI powered tools that actually help to improve enterprise workflows. That pivot has now manifested itself with the company's AI blocks technology and the preview of its agentic AI technology that it calls digital workforce. Monday realized the limitations of the AI assistant approach, which is the bolted on AI, and what users really wanted. Simply put, AI functionality needs to be in the right context for users, directly in a column, component, or service automation. AI blocks are predefined AI functions that Monday has made accessible and integrated directly into its workflow and automation tools. For example, in project management, the AI can provide risk mapping and predictability analysis, helping users better manage their projects. This allows them to focus on higher level tasks and decision making while the AI handles the more repetitive and data intensive work. This is the key thing here,
Yeah.
that people are able to now focus on higher order thinking.
Yeah, I think this is a really important takeaway. It's not just giving people access to an AI tool that makes it interesting, right? Like we've seen that in several tools out there where, like you might have like a Copilot that is now a chat interface that works in line with the software. That's great, but it's sort of like if I was a consulting firm and I was providing data science offerings to my customers, the clients that I took on, and I basically just created an environment where they could write their own AI models, right? That's not really going to work for them. They're more interested in our strategic approach for how to use these tools and using our expertise and our domain knowledge on how the product works to deliver something that's already sort of pre-baked. So companies really need to up their game in terms of using these tools properly and directly integrating the technology where it's most appropriate for their customers and making it just turnkey for them. They don't want to have to ask a bunch of questions of an inline AI chatbot. They want the AI technology built in a way that smooths out the process or makes the software more efficient or provides better recommendations, however you've decided to implement it. But the key opportunity here for entrepreneurs and small businesses in my mind is around the correct integration of the tool in the most strategic way possible. I had an opportunity to actually test this in sort of the wild recently. I got a chance to test the software of a new little startup that has a new app building platform. And the way that they've done this a little bit differently than the other ones I've seen out there is, with Cursor, which is a really good example for software developers, right? Like, give me a tool that allows me to build an app quickly using AI. Well, it's sort of the same problem. There's a chat bar on the left. I have to ask it questions, and it'll modify some of my code for me, and I can apply those changes. Cool. I think that's a step in the right direction. But let's say that I don't really care about how the app is built or the internals. I just have an idea in my mind and I really just want to write out the vision for what that looks like. What this little startup has done differently is they've backed the whole interface with Google Cloud. So it's connected to Firebase. You have to, create a new project. You have to give it the API keys. You give it access to everything. And now it's just utilizing the framework for how to develop an app on Google services. Then you give it the ideas of what do you want it to develop, and it's already pre-selected the frameworks that are going to be involved. It's going to use Next.js, it'll use Vue.js, and so on and so forth. And I realize I'm speaking in technical jargon here, but essentially, the tool has already made all these selections for you. It's already decided a lot of the software that will be used in order to build the app. You're not making a lot of these selections. All you're really caring about is, I want the app to be built. I want people to log in with Google. I want it to look like this, and I want it to connect to these services. And so, what this is an example of is an environment where somebody's taken the pieces and put them together in a way that drives more value by making it easier to use. And I think Monday is doing exactly this. This is where the opportunity is cropping up.
Well, it reminds me so much of the App Store. For when Apple released the App Store, the idea was that the benefit is that you had this common infrastructure, right?
Mhm.
The smartphone that you could build an app on, but it made it so that people can clone your app pretty easily,
Mhm.
right? You weren't coming up with something unbelievably brand new. If you had a game, someone could clone it. You had a to-do list app, someone could clone it. You could also have these this fight, and so you had to sort of like race to the bottom for how cheap you could make it, how pretty you could make
Sure.
it, blah blah blah. This is like that. It's like the different version of that, right? So we saw last year, I believe it was last year, where OpenAI was trying to push this whole GPT store. Do you remember this?
Mhm.
Where you'd be able to create a GPT, you'd be setting up your prompts, and then you would be selling this GPT. And people had it in their minds that, oh, I'm going to sell access to my GPT,
Right.
and people are going to be able to use it. I'm going to get them rich. And then it turned out, well, that couldn't be the case because the we with natural language, I don't need any technical ability to replicate what you're doing.
Mhm.
Right? You don't have any access to any special technology that's doing anything like that. And so it just flopped. Whereas now, and this is what further on and said the article for Monday was talking about, they're turning these agentic AIs into essentially, if you had a 100-person company, now you have a 1,000-person company because
Mhm.
you have a project manager and a data entry guy and a customer service guy and a review documentation guy, all
That's right.
behaving behind the scenes for you.
Yep.
And so you can actually behave like a larger company. And so if you have any shortcomings within your process, shortcomings within your workflow, shortcomings within your data, it'll be exacerbated by the AI. AI won't work. But if you have good core, good bones, and you toss this on, and you make these systems so that they actually speak to the AI, now the user can be completely non-technical,
That's
and then
right.
develop what they need to do.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, I
so
think
you're
right
seeing
now
people who are
we're kind of expecting that people use AI in its most productive form, but not everybody has the ability to use these tools to the best of their ability. So you got to bake in that solution for customers
right.
so that it's already prepared for them, that it's just turnkey.
What's fun about this is that the question was, would this actually increase productivity?
Hmm.
And would it then reflect in revenues and share price?
That's right.
And we could all sort of get the idea of the NVIDIA plays, the AMD plays, the infrastructure plays, the Oracle, because, well, whether it was going to work or not, billions of dollars are going to flow into the infrastructure.
Hmm.
But now we're seeing with the Monday example, no, the software side of it, you have way more examples of where this can actually take off, and companies that you might have seen. I saw so many people post. I saw ads for Monday past. I've been seeing ads for Monday since I've been alive, and now's the first time I'm like, hey, maybe I should try Monday.com.
Monday. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I find to be super fascinating. That now the rush is to like, hey, you have an infrastructure, you have a code base, you have data or whatever, surface that information with these tools. And so we're seeing stuff like, as far as the trade is concerned, we're seeing stuff like what do we have here? HubSpot coming back
Hmm.
on the scene. We're seeing Shopify, right? Can you
Hmm.
imagine the Shopify experience now where this it's AI enhanced. And so this promise or this uncertainty of what it can actually turn into and how useful that might be is causing a lot of these stocks to either jump up or potential to jump up. Adobe Adobe, that's been like a garbage company for me forever. I hated their tools. I had to pay all this money in order to use Photoshop and Macromedia and Fireworks and Dreamweaver and the whole thing. And
Hmm.
now they have I keep looking at their AI tools and their software, and I'm like, I guess I maybe have to buy a
It's pretty
subscription to
cool. It's pretty
Adobe.
cool, especially in Photoshop. I find it hilarious that you mentioned Macromedia and Dreamweaver there. That should age us right away.
Team for the team stock, Atlassian, and then Intuit, the invoicing software. Like I was thinking
Mm,
about all the tax softwares, all the invoicing softwares. Oh my god, it becomes a revival.
that's right.
Mint.com, all these different things. So now it's like, now if you wanted to be a value investor and you wanted to take a look at the bones of a company and you actually wanted to make a bet on that versus just buying the index of
Hmm.
a thing, you can make, what is it? We're seeing moves of 1, 2, sometimes 300%
Yeah,
on some of these assets that are not in any index thing, that are beating the S&P like by far. A
sure.
basket of AI stocks over the last 6 months, I believe, actually the last year, on average has gone up 87%.
Yeah, and this is perfect. Monday's a perfect example to look at in terms of even just its more internal fundamentals. Just looking at return on equity, for example, which is their retained earnings plus the amount of increase in shareholder value from the shareholders' equity, excuse me, from the previous year, it's up 21% is the future ROE over the next 3 years compared to an industry average of about 11.9%. So even the amount of internal growth that you can expect from their earnings in the future is expected to grow pretty rapidly. And I think we can expect that kind of outcome for many software companies across the board. So the next thing to look at would be to say, okay, let's pull back the list of all the software companies that stand to gain the most from this opportunity that haven't currently announced AI integrations, because it's still early stages for many of these larger, a little bit slower to move companies. I'd be looking for companies like Workday or larger HR organizations, insurance companies. Like there's so many opportunities to integrate AI that can rapidly improve productivity and increase shareholder value, obviously.
Well, the last thing I want to ask you that I can't wrap my head around, I don't know what to think about it before we move on to the inflation story, is that a lot of these AI plays, the ones that are actually generated the most amount of revenue on promise, are enterprise solutions.
Hmm.
We're not seeing a bunch of retail stuff. Now we are seeing solopreneurs and micro SaaS businesses popping up with interesting ideas that they're spinning up and they're generating, $5,000, $10,000 a month of revenue. Totally understandable, but
Sure.
those things are not necessarily set to scale in
Right.
any massive
Not
ways. We're
not
not
to hundreds of billions in overall market cap. Sure. Right.
exactly, and so I'm wondering, I have not seen yet where the threads are the retail thing, the dating website that turns into an unbelievable thing, the new email client that actually is mind blowing when it comes to these agentic AI. That's what it's going to be on my radar. I don't know if you've seen anything like that
I
yet, but
have. Actually, the Wall Street Journal did a story on this the other day. Apparently, Grindr is integrating some AI solutions to basically communicate with other profiles in a way that sort of adds to the experience. I don't have the full details on it, but this is a step in that direction where we're using AI to try to create and improved efficiencies. And one part of that process is really kind of starting with your dating profile, sharing information about you, getting through those icebreaker conversations, but in a way that's more efficient. There's a lot of people out there to have conversations with. If I can have conversations with all of them at the same time through AI, that gets really interesting.
All right, so I just have to mention this. So I met my wife through OkCupid, and we
Okay.
both love the platform because I love the questions. There's like basically this seemingly infinite number of questions that you can answer, and so if someone really cares about the deep dive on you, they could get these obscure questions. But what I always felt was there was never enough questions, never enough interesting questions. If some
Mhm.
AI was generating these questions for me to answer, I'd be on that website freaking all day long. If they wanted me to pay $100 per month, I would pay $100 a month. But what you were just saying here, this idea that if I read it right, the idea that my AI calibrated to my needs and wants and my interests and all that, who speaks like me, is speaking to someone else's AI who's doing the same, and then they have that match. It happens that hey, look, we really hit it off, and then the two AIs are sort of like matchmaking us together. Oh my god, I cannot wait for that. Those wedding vows or that speech at a wedding where it's like my AI met your AI and they knew at first AI contact that we would be in love. That's going to be great.
Now, I think the initial offering that Grindr has here is a beta test. I think they only made it available to like 10,000 people on the platform. And that may not be exactly their offering, but it was what came to mind the moment I heard the idea of AI and dating is, well, obviously, if we want to scale dating in a way that's more effective, then I would need AI talking to AI, right? Like that's more agentic. The other concept, and this definitely seems to be more in line with what they're actually trying to accomplish here, is the AI Wingman, which is what they're calling it, where it's offering you advice through your journey as well, based on what it knows about, your history. And, you could ask questions about, well, what should I say here? Things like that. Obviously, those are the types of tools that can boost people's confidence, make them feel better about the dating process. From what I know, and I have two siblings that are in the dating scene at the moment in their 30s, it's brutal out there. So it sounds like any opportunity you can take to make the experience better, I'm all for it. Even if it's a tool like AI. At the moment, it feels like both of them are using ChatGPT, but to integrate these tools directly into the experience into a tool, I think that's what we're expecting to see over the next year or so. So I'm looking for companies that are doing exactly this, and the agentic play is going to be around companies that effectively leverage their own data, their own processes, and their own strategic thinking to get the most out of these tools on behalf of their customers.
So let's take a moment to shout out TradersPost, the automated trading platform designed to take the friction out of executing your strategies. Whether you're trading stocks, futures, or crypto, TradersPost connects seamlessly to your broker or exchange, giving you the flexibility to automate your trades without missing a beat. If you're tired of being the bottleneck in your own success, it's time to let automation do the heavy lifting. Head over to traderspost.io and see how easy it is to streamline your trading. Okay, now I feel like a real podcaster. Not that there's an ad break inside of
Yeah, we got an ad break in the inside. I like it.
it.